Well, good morning. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Looking forward to this show. We're going to be highlighting the Great American Freedom Revival August 5th with Brandon Tatum, Ted Laurent, and Tim Barton of Wall Builders. So, should be a good event. But we need to kind of think about why would it be important to go to an event like this. Now, I have two other events I'm just going to briefly plug. They're both Lincoln Reagan dinners. One is up in Merced. That one is put on by the CRA, so California Republican Assembly, and the Women's Federated in Merced County. That is a Thursday night at 5 p.m. Should be a good event. The contact is Gene Johnson, 209-508-9933. You do need to speak up beforehand. So that is July 27th, 2023. This is also going on video, so I want people to know that. There's also an event, the Lincoln Reagan dinner for the Fresno GOP. That one, the main speaker is Steve Hilton. It's a little expensive. I think it's $275. Now, why would I be plugging Republican events? Well, I'm a conservative. I think the Democrats are the problem. I don't know that the Republicans are always the answer, but there's a fire going on. What do? You pick the side and you have to take a side. And we're going to expand on that idea of sides. Again, I think there's a lot of flawed Republicans, but I also think that the good ones are people that I can actually believe in, and I know almost no Democrats that I can actually believe in. Maybe some neighbors, some friends, some family members, but those that are in politics, not so much. So that Lincoln Reagan dinner, this was the one for the Fresno GOP. You have to reserve. You go to fresnogop.org. Is August 1st. And I look forward to meeting Steve Hilton because I'm going to be there. Now, getting on to the event that we're here to highlight today, August 5th, in Clovis at the Memorial Building. I have one of the key speakers. I am joined by my friend, Ted Laurent.
Good morning.
So, Ted, this is the second time we've done this. Not just this show, but the second time there's been this event.
Right.
Why'd you do this?
In fact, we're going to keep doing it. If the house is still on fire,
it's going to still be on fire. We need a lot of water to put this fire out.
So there you go. I mean, that's why, because we still have the problem. We still haven't eradicated evil.
Right, and I don't know that necessarily all the Democrat politicians are evil, but I believe that the policies that they're pushing forward, whether they're blind and foolish or actually evil, I don't know. But a lot of the culture things are crazy.
Extremely crazy. And unfortunately, and we're seeing it with the coming of the outcoming of the movie Sound of Freedom and the flack that it's getting from the left. And we see, so this is good for people to see that there are those on the left, that includes the Democratic Party, or Democratic Party as I like to call them, and rhinos in the Republican Party, that are liberal, progressive oriented. They are defensive of the stance that this is a conspiracy, that children really aren't under attack like that, and the human trafficking isn't quite to that extent, and they're very defensive, calling it all kinds of QAnon stuff and whatever. But
I would pray that it is smaller than they're claiming, but it is absolutely an atrocity and evil. And how could you not eagerly go, yep, we need to do everything we can to wipe this out?
That's how we can see the separating of the lines and go, wow. And everyone that's on the left, it doesn't seem to have that same passion and fervor to do something about it.
Well, this is the same left that no longer wants to call out and use the word pedophile, but they're minor attracted people.
This is the same left that can't even define what a woman is. Yeah. So we're borderline evil at every which way you look at it.
Well, this is a Trump policy that Biden reversed right away. It used to be when our border was somewhat closed. It wasn't perfect, but somewhat closed, and right. Trump was in office. Biden came in, not only did the border become wide open, but there's something else highly concerning. Trump decided that if you came in with a kid, you were taking a DNA test, which in today's world, if they have a lab right there, they can process through that in a very short amount of time to determine whether that was actually your kid. Yeah. Biden got rid of that,
right.
Meaning it was so much easier to traffic. Now, is it because he's a bumbling fool or is it because he's evil?
He's a bumbling fool, evil man.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my conclusion, but I wanted people to think about that.
I was helping him. Conclude it. You don't have to ponder it. He's evil, and everything that they're standing for is evil. Yeah. I heard some people on whatever show it was. I don't remember. They're saying that this isn't a left or right issue. This is a good and evil issue. And I said, well, kind of on the surface, except that those who are protecting the evil are on the left. Mm-hmm. So it's an evil and good issue, but it's still a left-right issue. They haven't separated themselves.
Well, a huge part of the left wants to destroy religion.
Yeah, yes, that's been a part of their agenda from the beginning.
Well, because, wouldn't it make more sense to pray to government? Yes. Or pray to climate change? Well, or transgenderism?
Yes. Yeah, pray to whoever it is that's in power that can control you.
Yeah, well, it's basically a secular religion.
Yeah,
is what they're trying to set up.
It is. Scientism is a religion. People that believe that science is everything. That's a religion.
Right.
You can go on and on.
So, yet science can't seem to explain a whole lot of things.
No.
And I believe in miracles. Mm. You just go out in nature and look at the divine miracle that's there. You don't have to look any farther than that or see a young kid. And that's part of what makes this acceptance of pedophilia so offensive.
Right. No, this is extremely offensive. And I really believe that there are more men and women waking up. I actually just did a little video on Instagram. The scriptures in Isaiah 59 where it says, when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Lord himself raises up a banner. And the enemy has come in like a flood. Mm-hmm. At every which way you can imagine, with corrupt politicians and stolen elections, the pandemic stuff, transgenderism, and grooming children. I mean, it is just coming at us at every angle. Mm-hmm. That's the flood.
That's intentional, though.
Correct. And however, the Lord himself raises up that banner. He's calling attention to the children. That's the one thing. That's the one rallying point. Like that banner is ahead of the troops. That's where you rally to. So he's raised up this banner, and it's the children. Because we can't back off on this issue. We backed off on every other issue. We can't on this one. Then we're totally done. Mm-hmm. If we can't even protect our children, we don't even deserve to be a nation. We don't deserve to be a culture if you can't protect your children.
So I want to go back to, because I think there's a huge problem with the fact that churches won't even touch politics.
Right.
And I think that churches absolutely, if you believe in a doctrine, mm-hmm. and that doctrine spells out morality, that morality connects to issues. So the very minimum is they need to talk about those issues as how in the Bible and how they connect to everyday issues.
Everyday issues, every moment issues.
And they're not, a lot of them, not doing that.
No, that's it. This is, when we're going to talk about this.
I know, I was leading somewhere.
Setting me up. August 5th, I'm going to bring a lot of attention to that very thing, that we've literally been held captive for almost 70 years. And I'm going to illustrate that using the Nehemiah story. Because if you remember some of your biblical history, the nation of Israel was surrounded and then held captive, pulled away. A lot of people were taken to Babylon. So the nation went into captivity, as the Bible says. So 1954, we're in the 69th year of this. This is why I'm encouraged, because next year will be the 70th year. And that means we come out of captivity, that we're waking up. So 1954 was the Johnson Act. That's when he encouraged the churches to accept the 501c3 filing for a couple of reasons. One, they were protected from lawsuits and stuff, which didn't matter because they already were anyways. That was part of the deception. but it also afforded givers a better tax freedom. So it was alluring.
So this is another Lyndon Johnson unintended consequence, or maybe intended consequence
Yeah, well, it
problem.
was definitely intended because one of the main reasons, at least where I've read about it, that he brought this in, introduced it because local pastors were speaking against him and some of his policies. So he created this and allured them that, hey, you can have a better tax base, you'll make more money. That was the allure. You'll make more money. And they fell for it hook, line, and sinker. And we've literally been held captive ever since because it silenced us.
Well, our founding fathers weren't held captive.
No.
And I hope that Tim Barton of Wall Builders talks about this particular point. He has a lot to say.
Yeah.
He does a great job of connecting biblical history and the Constitution.
Yes, he does.
And even non-biblical history, American history.
Yes.
He connects all those dots in a way that is profound. And one of the things that when I was watching one of the videos from Wall Builders that really struck me was all of those ideas that are defined in the Bill of Rights, essentially those first 10 amendments of the Constitution, all of those were discussed in one place. And it wasn't a bar.
Right.
They discussed them all in church. So those founding fathers didn't come up with that. They refined it. And they were God inspired and wrote down what I consider to be the most important non-religious document ever written.
Oh, it's truly inspired. But one thing that a lot of people miss, and I don't remember if we talked about this last time, but in our history, we were beginning to slip away morally in the early 1700s, and God's just raised up ministers like Jonathan Edwards, George Whitefield, many others that were preaching and really strong, and we had what's known as the First Great Awakening, and it swept across the country.
So that happened just before, what is that, 1740s?
It was the 1720s through the 60s. You know, it lasted for several years. But what that did is that really set a foundation for what would be built on when they framed the Constitution. They had this moral fiber that came out of that, this the strength of character. If you recall, I think I shared last time, is that they said we will have no king in reference to the King of England than King Jesus. And that was our political leaders writing that down and sending that letter back to the king. So that's our foundation.
Well, and they set forth that idea that all men are created equal. Now, where they failed in that.
Well, we know where
men fail.
They did that. And we can argue, and everybody can argue whether it was the right thing or not. The leaders felt it was more important, and I'm hoping Tim gets into this a little bit. That it was more important to form the United States and be an entire state, not divided, because we were divided on the slavery issue.
Absolutely.
But we felt it was important to establish the Constitution, become a nation, then we'll hammer out this issue.
Well, they set forth in the Constitution a set of ideals in a lot of ways.
Right.
They just didn't completely live up to them initially. But
well, they tried, actually. They had
the North tried.
They had a vote. They brought it to a vote to abolish slavery. It was one of the first acts of Congress, besides getting Bibles in the schools. And they voted on it, and it fell one vote short of but we could have ended it right then.
Yeah.
And then it took another 80 years. So, but still, to our credit as a nation, no other nation can say that.
Right.
No one even comes close.
Well, the British Empire, essentially by the King's decree, went, we're done with slavery. And they did get rid of it in some places, but not all, because, they had to keep the cash flowing.
Right. Well, and
so they get some credit, but for going first, but they don't get total credit because all of the colonies did not abolish slavery initially.
Right. Well, and then to my earlier point that we once we became a nation, we settled the issue in a little over 80 years. How long had the British Empire been enjoying the fruits of slavery until they ended it? As a nation,
a couple hundred years at least.
Right. We did it in a little over 80 years. So, I mean,
Well, and slavery sadly was the norm. The word slave comes from the Czechoslovakian Slavs.
correct.
So those are white people.
Right. Well, they were enslaved by Muslims.
By the North Africans.
Correct.
The same North Africans that fueled the slave trade when it came to the United States and Brazil. Well, in South America, North and South America, essentially.
Yeah, and the sad truth is that now we've become more of a slave nation than ever with the human trafficking.
Well, human trafficking, and I believe that the welfare state is a soft tyranny. They give you just enough.
It is.
That, and then, in order to keep your payments coming, to stay on.
Right.
I hate to use the word plantation, but this is kind of a quote from Candace Owen. Stay on the plantation.
Right. Well, and we're lucky to have Brandon Tatum here, who teams with Candace Owens.
They both formed Blexit.
They did, and that's like their life ministry is to reach the black community, to get them off the plantation. Stop listening to the Democrats. Stop voting for them. Stop getting a handout. You can be more than this. They literally spend a lot of time trying to speak life into them, not just don't do this, don't do that. They are trying to encourage them to be better.
Well, yeah, they're giving them a path forward.
Yeah, they are.
And interestingly enough, the African American community in much higher rates than the white community goes to church.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why that doesn't translate into if you go to church. I think for the most part, you're conservative. You live your life that way.
For the most part, the sad stats are that over 50% of Christ confessing citizens in America, that they confess to be Christian, over 50% of them are registered Democrats. That's a sad state of affairs, and a lot of them are in the black community. And so hence the ministry of Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum. We should call him Sir Brandon Tatum.
Well, it's definitely a ministry with Brandon.
Yes,
he is absolutely always speaking the word of God.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to having him there.
Should be a great event. We also have some smaller speakers, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I think that we are blessed to have 3 smaller speakers. You want to talk a little bit about who those are?
Sure. Give them an order that they're going to appear, too.
Okay.
We know Kevin Cookingham, who's been around the Valley for a long time.
Long-term educator.
Yep, long time. Just a great guy. Man of integrity and principle. And he's got that Christian college. I wish I could remember the name of what he was.
I interviewed him about it, and I'm sad to say that it's not coming to me either.
Right. I have him coming to my event, and I don't remember the name of that college. Sorry, Kevin. Forgive me. But I love Kevin. He's a great. He was actually at our first one last year too, sitting off in his little booth off to the side, taking in the nice weather that we had.
I was on a table right next to him.
Yeah, so and he's a delight. He always shares well when he's talking and sharing. So I'm really looking forward to having him there.
So local guy, local to Clovis.
Local guy.
Local to Clovis.
And again, the reason why we're picking these minor leaders, speakers, like Pastor Lewis.
And they're not minor speakers. They just have less time than the 3 featured speakers.
Which is all it is. But as Pastor Lewis, who is another one of the speakers, says, he likes it as a minor prophet. So it doesn't mean that what he's saying is any less gratitude. He just doesn't cover as much pages. But we have Michael Marr, who's a local warrior, a man of God, a man of integrity. And again, like with him and Kevin, these are guys that are trying to get involved, trying to make a change, trying to do something. They're realizing, well, we got to get engaged here. We can't sit back and do nothing and expect someone else to do it.
So, first-time political candidate.
Yeah.
Young guy. Successful in business, successful in a lot of ways.
Right.
Great family.
Yep.
One of the most fun interviews I ever did is I had him and his son sitting here with me.
Oh, fun.
And his son was, I think he was 10 at the time.
Oh, boy, you can get some good stuff.
Oh, yes. We made Michael sweat just a little bit, a couple times.
I bet, yeah.
Because I conspired with Michael's wife.
Oh, man, that's funny.
have his kid have a couple stories.
Yeah, note to self: don't let Eric invite my children. Okay. No, so we're glad to have Michael Moore, and he was enthusiastic to want to be a part of it. And then I reached out to Pastor Louis Quintana, who heads the New Hope Family Church in Selma.
Good man.
A great man, good minister. I love what they're doing. Him and Pastor Jesse Alvarez. There's another pastor I met, Marty. I don't remember his last name. Forgive me, Marty. They work together to coordinate a lot of the pastors. They're just involved. They're doing things that I know that we have to do.
Well, they're community leaders. For instance,
They
I
are.
know that Pastor Quintana just tried to run for Selma mayor.
He
Didn't
did.
make it through,
Correct.
but he was willing, as a leader of the church,
Correct.
to step up and
Yep.
try to help his community in a way that was political. Did you hear that?
Yeah,
The
that's right.
church and politics, they're really not separate, because you can't go through and be religious without having the church in your life, and you can't go through life without being political. As soon as there's two people in a room, maybe there's some politics, but unquestionably, when there's that third person, there's unquestionably politics.
Yeah, right. No, that's a good point. It's a good way to put it too. But that's why we got Lewis involved here.
We're going to go ahead and take a break on that note. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. So, social media audience, just briefly, how do they find out about this event? We have a website.
Yep, revivalusa.net. They can even go to, if they wanted to type in more letters, because some people like to do that, they can type in the greatamericanfreedomrevival.com, and it'll take you right to revivalusa.net. Or you can just go to revivalusa.net.
So, you can help spread this message by liking, subscribing, commenting.
Mm-hmm.
Send this interview with friends that maybe it'll inspire them to come to the event. Let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. Also now on 102.3 FM. So we're expanding.
Right.
And today I am talking about the Great American Freedom Revival, August 5th, with one of the keynote speakers, Ted Laurent, or as when you were on Kingdom Talk, every time you were Ted Laurent.
Laurent, yes, oui. I am the Frenchman, no? No.
I thought that was hilarious.
It was pretty funny. Yeah.
Dennis gave you, so another show on this station, Kingdom Talk. Dennis gave you just a little, almost a royal title.
He did.
That was a good show, though.
And I received it, too. I'll take all the royalty I can get. I'll even take royalties. Thank you very much. Okay,
So,
where are we at?
I think that we need to talk a little bit more about the culture issue. We touched on Sound of Freedom, and I see that as a win.
Mm-hmm.
It's an important win because it shifts the culture. But I think that culture-wise, things started to go nuts when Bud Light decided they needed a trans activist, supposed fake woman, that came on and acted like a little girl.
Right.
And then portrayed women as if they were, well, vapid, not so bright. I see it as Dylan Mulvaney was wearing woman face, or maybe in this case, little girl face, and it was insulting to women.
Yeah.
The left seems to want to erase women.
Yeah. Well,
real women.
From a biblical standpoint, I see it as the attack on the family. When we look at the three pillars of our country, and this is why politics and religion is so important to keep together and hash things out, fight things out. The strength of our nation is standing on three pillars: the Constitution, the family, the strength of the family, because that's strength of community, the strength of the state, etc., and the church. And all three are under attack, and have been for a long time. That's notable. I mean, you can look at it; it's measurable. You can see how much they're doing, how much lying, how much is taught in schools, how much is misrepresented in entertainment. I mean, it's a literal attack on all three of those pillars. And so the transgender stuff is just more of the same towards the family.
Well, and before that, it was the sexualization of everything.
Which,
I mean, transgenderism got there later.
yeah.
It was sexualized. Think of
it's turning up the heat.
You can't watch TV even prime time and not have lots and lots of sexual references.
Right.
You might see two people, everything's covered up, but they're still in bed together and they're not married.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, that's part of undermining the strength of the family, which kind of goes over into attacking the church too, because,
well, the church has standards, and I think they want to attack standards.
Yes. And so some churches will comply and say, well, we just love and we don't come against anybody. You can live your life and do all that. That's part of the attack. And unfortunately, some people cave and comply and compromise.
Okay, but there's a famous quote, and I have no idea who did this quote, but
test me.
Love the sinner, hate the sin.
Straight from the Holy Spirit, he told somebody somewhere along the line.
Okay. Well, that fits.
How about that?
But why should we, because we all fail.
Correct.
We all sin.
Yeah,
but why should we be embracing things that essentially destroy society, destroy family?
Yeah, unfortunately, liberalism, progressivism, all that stuff, they don't know how to think things through. So when you live a life of immorality, you're only thinking in the moment. You're not thinking what that looks like down the road, how it's playing out in society, what's happening to society. On the conservative side, I don't know if we still know how to think through everything, but if we stick to our principles, we're just trusting and it's going to work. If you maintain good, healthy families, you have good, healthy communities. Uh-huh. You start breaking those families apart and introducing all kinds of sexual perversions. You're awakening the passions of young people prematurely that the scripture warns not to do. Now you just end up with a lot of problems. But it doesn't take that much to think it through. I lived a life of discovering things as a young man that I wish I hadn't. And it created problems in my life. So I needed the Lord to set me free when I came to him. So I can testify, I could see where that was going, and it was not a good path. And if we kept doing that, and if I kept doing that, I wouldn't have my kids today. Who knows where I would be? I wouldn't have the great family that I have. I wouldn't have my 8th grandchild on the way. That's part of the blessings of walking uprightly. But there's a curse when you start walking down that evil path, that flesh-loving path, if you will. And that's supposed to be the influence of the church in the culture, in politics. You can't open up the laws like our government did and said, well, we're going to redefine marriage. That's not a good idea. Think that one through. That's going to destroy our culture and our society. But they don't care. They got to live in the moment, and they're going to continue to push their agenda, including, as you described earlier, redefining pedophilia. Mm-hmm. The redefining of words is a big part of what they do. And when you have people that are less literate, because that's proven, we're not teaching our kids to read anymore.
Or civics.
Civics
is literally out the window in a whole lot of states.
Isn't that crazy? Absolutely crazy.
And it's out the window in this state.
Yeah, well,
they got to teach the kids. They got to groom them first.
Right, correct. Everything's out the window in this state. So
but I don't think there's no hope, or I wouldn't be in this fight.
I agree with you, and maybe you would remember his name. There was a politician, a state senator, I think he was, that literally said, "You folks need to move out of the state."
I don't remember his name. I kind of immediately dismissed it and went, well, when you expect defeat,
yeah,
we tend to meet our expectations.
So you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. He was referring to a bill that would allow the state to, if you don't affirm your kids' need or want, I'm not going to say need, want to transition, they would consider that abuse, and then the state could take your kid away from you.
Yeah, them's fighting words.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but so to me, they're fighting words now.
But they believe that they're not your kids, they're their kids.
Correct.
You just have the privilege of paying for them.
Right. Yeah, you're responsible for whatever they do. But
they think they're responsible for indoctrinating their minds into this woke liberal mindset.
Again, I'm back to God raising up the banner, calling attention to getting in the fight. We can't sit back anymore. We've been complacent too long, something we need to repent from. That should be a message in every church. Mm-hmm. You know, we've been silent. We've allowed them to silence us. We can't do this anymore. Father, forgive me and show me how to get engaged. All right, well, support pastors like Lewis who are running for mayor. Support guys like Michael Marr who are running for a congressman.
21st District.
Correct.
He's running against the dreaded Chicken Jim Costa. And I always say Chicken Jim because Chicken Jim has a long-standing history of dodging debates, agreeing to do debates, and then never showing up and always has an excuse.
Yeah. Well, you're kind to just call him a chicken because I like chicken, but I don't like cowards.
Well, he's more like a rubber chicken.
Yeah, he's a rubber chicken already. He's a lame duck. He's a coward. Mm-hmm. Just we can say that.
During COVID, I think a lot of light came to this situation. Mm-hmm. I see COVID as this great opportunity. A lot of people see it as this great tyranny. Well, it's both.
It is both. Yeah.
Just like most things, it depends on what you choose to focus on.
Right.
I thought it was this great opportunity because Gavin Newsom immediately said, by the way, that's the governor that wants to run for president. Folks, he's more incompetent than Kamala and Joe combined. He's just better at lying.
Yeah.
He said, we're going to recreate and have a more progressive type of capitalism. First part of COVID. Then he went, it would be a really good idea. What if we told people they couldn't go to church, but we're going to keep the strip clubs open? If you're not from California and you didn't know that, shame on you. But that's because alternate media talks about this. Mm-hmm. This is an absolute fact.
Right.
If you have people that will be voting elsewhere that are Democrats, point that out. Church couldn't be open, but you could go to the strip club in California during COVID.
Right. Yeah. It's beyond aggravating where I still feel that anger where I want to hit something.
And channel that anger, my friend.
Yes, I'm trying to channel that and use words because I'm an adult. I got to use words. Try to tell my grandchildren, and you got to find a platform to speak on, create one. They're out there. Open your mouth, speak up, stand up at a school board meeting. We got to take those back. Mm-hmm. We got to stand up at a local.
City council.
Thank you.
Board of supervisors.
Everything local. That's our shot. That's where we got to get after.
And if you're retired and you have some time, there's all kinds of appointed boards where you could begin to understand about government and have a conservative voice.
Yeah.
And by and large, people don't do that. Right. They're not on appointed boards. I'm not, but I want to point out I lead a group. I'm on the committee for this August 5th mm-hmm. Great American Freedom Revival. I'm on the Fresno Republican Central Committee. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big mouth here on the radio.
I wasn't going to say it quite like that, but but that works. Well, you got to be a big mouth everywhere you can. You know, you hand out flyers when you walk into a Bible study, right?
That's our earlier conversation, and we're not going to go into that one.
Well, we just talk to people. You know, in the grocery stores, I see someone I haven't seen in a long time. Hey, what are you doing? I'll tell you what I'm doing. Pull out a flyer. This is what I'm doing. In fact, you know what? I'm going to send you my promotional video. I think you'll love it. You should come. In fact, you want to buy a ticket? I got one with me. I've had these conversations. So you never know who you're going to run into. Be prepared. And I'm saying that in jest because that's our event and stuff. But what about when you're just standing in line in a grocery store and you start talking about the sound of freedom or whatever other thing may come up? You know?
But all those matter because all of those begin to shift the culture around you.
Yep. We just can't be afraid to speak up anymore. It's for our children's sake. I don't care if you're outnumbered in an argument. Stand up, speak up. Because we're not going to stand before God and he's going to look at you like, why did you cave? Your children were at stake and you cowered.
Well, and, it's hard to be the first one to stand up. I remember early COVID, I'm on Blackstone and Shaw with a sign. And there's only just a few of us out there.
Right.
It was really tough with very few people standing against what I consider to be absolute tyranny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what if you're not the person that is willing to be the point of the spear, but you're still in the fight? You still believe the same things. What if you were to stand in solidarity with that person? What if you were to even have the conversations with people you feel safe? Because politics and religion has become such a third rail that some people won't even have a conversation about them with their friends.
Mm. And we can't be afraid of that.
Right.
No matter what our knowledge level is. Ask questions. Just whatever the legitimate questions in your heart are, ask them. Because when we ask questions, we create doubt in the other person. You know, that's what we learned in sales. When you're talking about a competitor, just ask questions. Don't tell them your competitor's bad. Just ask questions. Yeah. They start to doubt. Well, we got to ask questions.
One of the other things that I think is incredibly powerful is that humor is something that people are able to hear a message, and concealed within that humor can be a message.
Yeah,
for a long time, comedy has been, well, without morals. But there are some good, really good comedians. The Babylon Bee, I think, is leading the way using satire.
Right.
And people look at it or something, and occasionally they're just fooled, and they think it's real. But most of the time, people get it right away, and they're not threatened by the message. So I think that when you can use a little humility and you can use some humor, you can touch people that otherwise would not even, they would immediately put their hands up and go, la, 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 la.
Right. Can you do that again?
Okay,
never mind.
It's on camera. You'll be able to watch it again.
Well, but you said something earlier that I want to try to encourage people to think about when you said you may not be the tip of the spear, but somebody's got to be part of the spear.
Right.
To make it a spear, there's a long wood staff attached to that head. That's what makes it a spear. If it's a short little wood staff, it's not a spear. It's I don't know, a knife maybe.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're trying to throw a spear without that rod, without all the components that make up that wooden staff, without everybody getting involved somewhere, becoming a part of that spear, supporting that tip of the spear, then it's not a spear. So when we're asking people to get involved, I realize that not everybody is going to be the tip,
right? Which
is fine. But get involved because you become a part of that staff. It makes it a greater weapon. It makes it more. It makes everything that what's happening with the, with the tip of the spear. It makes it more effective. It makes it more powerful. We've got to get everybody together. We've got to cross the line. We've got to get churches opening their mouths and not being afraid to talk about politics because it's life. But
and then they never have to mention party.
No, they don't. Well, most people should see, but and I'm not opposed to pointing it out because I call them the Democratic Party. But
I know, but or if you were a pastor that's a little worried, you could just talk about the issues.
You could, right?
And never mention party.
Yep, I agree.
You might even say, I would encourage you as your responsibility, because I think you have a responsibility to vote. You have a choice in your freedom. Part of your responsibility. Why don't you look at the platforms of each party?
It'd be a good place to start.
Because the platforms tell you where each party's values are.
Right.
Now, are they in some ways corrupt? Both parties, yeah. Human nature,
right,
or corrupt. Is there cronyism, meaning the marriage of big business and our politicians and our deep state? Yeah, there's a lot of problems, but there's also a lot of hope because so many people have now begun to step up.
Right. Well, the Constitution, the system that's in place, is not evil. Constitution is incredible. But is it Sam Adams that said that the Constitution is only for a religious and moral person? It's completely inadequate for anybody else. So when you start thinking greed and you start looking at the power you can get, it's afforded you. The system is there to be played because we've given ourselves so much freedom.
Right. That's the issue.
Right.
If you're not moral and you have that much freedom, some monsters will arise.
Correct. Yeah. And the beauty is we can remove them. We can keep them in check, but it's going to take our obedience and our humility and our engagement. We can't sit back.
And some good leaders.
We need a lot of good leaders.
And that's why you need to get involved in the primary. We're going to go ahead and take our final break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. As you know, my friend, this last segment, I always try to make it about hope and solutions. And then so when we first come back, we're going to plug August 5th. At the end, we'll plug August 5th. But hope and solutions.
Because that's August 5th is part of the hope and solution.
Yep. Let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. We're talking about the Great American Freedom Revival, August 5th in Clovis, California. And I am joined by my friend, Ted Laurent.
Thank you.
You know, you kind of sound like Pepe Le Pew when you do that. That seems appropriate.
Anytime I do French, it sounds like Pepe Le Pew. So
that's probably where you learned your French.
It's a great place to learn. You learn a lot in cartoons.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So this is a very real event, and I think it's got the potential to bring real hope and hopefully light a fire and get people more active.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I even said that in the promotional video for those who haven't seen it. I declared that this isn't just another conference with conservative talking heads, because those are always good, and we can walk away going, all right, that was good.
Well, and they go, I'm not alone.
Right, and that's encouraging, but we're trying to breathe fire into people and wake them up. That's why we're covering the three areas that we are, because we're really encompassing all of truth. We're not just here's current events, here's how it sucks, and blah. History is such a great component, and people's eyes are going to open like, wow, I didn't even know that. It's going to encourage them. And then the biblical prophecy side is going to be pointing in the direction that's encouraging. It's that double-edged sword. Align with me. The fear of God is powerful, and we're going to be presenting that. But we're going to have a lot of people there. We're going to have vendors that people can align themselves with and go, wow, look at that group over there. I like what they're doing. I want to help them out.
Wait, there's going to be multiple opportunities to get involved?
There's going to be multiple opportunities. There's going to be no shortage, and no one will have an excuse when they leave that building saying, wow, I still don't know what to do. That will be impossible. We have Vanna White, who will be helping tell everybody, I'm going to knock this thing over yet. We'll tell everybody.
We might want to give her a real name.
Tracy Henderson, who heads the Parents Union. She's a delight and a firebrand herself. And she's going to be my Vanna White, just encouraging people to go and visit the vendors, introduce yourself to them. Because these are people who are getting involved. These are people who are engaged. They're just moms and dads. They're small business owners. They're people that have lots of responsibilities and things going on. Some with young babies, like my Chella, who's working with us and helping with all the raffle tickets. She just had a baby, like 4 months old. She is a trooper. And
that baby isn't 4 months old.
I think so.
I think it's a little younger than that.
Well, it's within 2 to 6 months old. How about that? Somewhere. But she's just a trooper, and she's getting out there to the Fresno Unified School Board meetings, and she gives them hell, and she's just involved. She's a mom. She's raising her kids. So there's no excuse for other people who are busy. We're all busy, but our kids and grandkids' lives are at stake here. So tough.
So let's see. We've got time to watch TV, a lot of time. And you look at statistics on the amount of TV and the amount of time that people play games, online video games, as opposed to in-person games.
Yeah.
I have less problem with in-person games because at least you're interacting with friends or family.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
But we've got all this time for worthless stuff in a society where, let's face it, for the most part, life's pretty good, so people don't get tested in the same ways they could be.
Which is probably why the current status of our country is helping the push, because things have been really good, but there's so much in our face. inflation is in our face, and it's affecting our pocketbook. I know when I go to the grocery store, I'm wincing, to walk out with 2 bags of groceries and still spend $90. Like, holy cow!
Well, that's an eye opener, and inflation directly relates to government policy.
Exactly. You've got political issues relating people's lives, so we should speak up.
Though the biggest differences are local.
Correct.
We tend to point out president, but the biggest difference is to how your everyday life goes, meaning you're more likely to need a local cop or a firefighter or an ambulance driver. But those things don't just happen on their own. It takes good governance.
Right.
As I sit here in Fresno, if it's not a serious issue, but I still need the cops, and I'm not trying to bag on Fresno PD because I think they do the best they can, but they're kind of overwhelmed. They might not show up unless it's a really serious issue. I happen to live in Clovis, and they're looking to be proactive.
Yeah, they are.
Because but they've got a different government that prioritized those emergency services.
Well, and whether people know it or not, the city government within the police department, I've had an opportunity to learn some of this and meet some of the folks. And literally, I pray for Beat 6 every day. So I'll give a shout out to Sergeant Westbury and Corporal Hunter. They're a good group of guys, and I pray for them every day. But the leadership at Clovis are Christians. They're asking for church help because they can't handle every domestic call and everything. They're asking for help. That would be nice to see that from Fresno. I went to an event last year, maybe whatever that drag queen show was at a local church, and
a Lutheran church.
It was Jesus left the building a long time ago. I went there just not knowing exactly what I was going to be doing. I'm not a protester necessarily. I'm not yelling at people. That's not who I am. So I went up to the police officers and just started talking with them, and I found myself challenging them and saying, you know what, at some time in your life, you have to be a man, and you can't hide behind the badge. You can't protect something that you know to be evil. Just because you're assigned, you can't say, well, this is what I'm told. Doesn't matter. We all people have to stand for what is right. That's the American spirit. We do what is right. The communist spirit does what you're told, and we don't want to be a communist nation.
Wait, but every example of communism I can think of, and true socialism, they've succeeded wildly, haven't they? There's got to be somebody. Well, we only have like 2 minutes left, so we probably can't come up with any successful communist country.
No, I would say define success.
Well, China's somewhat economically successful, but it's a totalitarian state.
Yeah, no.
Where you don't have freedom, and they're free to imprison a whole portion of their population and put them in prison camps those people are called Uyghurs.
See, so they have freedom there. They're free to imprison whoever they want.
Well, yeah, the government has freedom.
Yeah, the government has freedom. People do not. And we don't want that here in America. So we're going to believe for a great outcome because, like I said earlier, God himself is raising up a banner. So when people start responding to that, good things happen. This is, to me, this is a positive outcome. We're stirring a fire here in the valley, a fire in people's belly. They're going to want to do something. They're going to want to be, they're going to be filled with truth. Tim Barton's going to inspire them like, wow, my country is a great country. I love this country. And then Brandon Tatum's going to inject some fire in there too. Like, wow, all this stuff's going on and we can stand up. We can be a voice. Look what he's doing. And I can do it too. I can be a small part of that staff at the end of the spear. I can get involved.
Right.
And then they're going to meet all these vendors and see just regular people. Like, wow, this is awesome. And then they're going to hear that Ted guy. They'll probably like, well, I don't know, he was a little crazy. But
but our other two speakers and all our smaller speakers are fine.
They're all awesome. But it's my event, and I'm going to speak. It's like I'm bringing the basketball, and I want to play. I hope to inspire myself and lead people to a deeper relationship and commitment with the Lord for the sake of our nation and their grandchildren.
One final plug for website. How do you get involved? How do you find this event?
revivalusa.net. That is the best way.
Well, as I frequently say to my people, It's time to get off your butts. It's time to get involved. It's time to make a difference. This country and liberty and freedom are all worth it. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town, also on 102.3 FM. I thank you.